What used to be normal in the past, but fucked up now? Smoking wherever you liked. As a child I remember my mom and dad smoking on the plane when we went on holidays. That seems crazy to me now. People smoked almost everywhere. Hospitals, restaurants, offices, grocery stores. You could not get away from the smoke and smell indoors unless no one in your family smoked. And maybe in churches. I do not remember anyone smoking in church. My dad says he remembers his pediatrician in the early 60s would be smoking while examining him. He says during his teenage years, most public buildings would have this permanent haze of lingering cig smoke hanging around, and it wasn't until the 2000s that the law firm he worked for started making people go outside to smoke. I worked there summer of 2002, and the boss would always have a cigar going, puffing away up and down the halls. Supposedly, the reason why house interiors were all painted the same boring off-white is because everyone just knew their walls would get stained to hell with smoke. Beige was just the only color that didn't look awful afterwards. Of course this explanation doesn't cover why wallpaper was so popular, but still thought it was interesting. My entire house is this color. When I looked at it on Zillow, it looked like a clown walked in and detonated. The 20-feet walls in the living room were canary yellow, the 2.5 bathrooms were pink, light blue, and green, one bedroom was purple, etc. etc. When I went to look at it, painters came in and sprayed the entire house magnolia, including the trim, doors, and ceilings. Granted, magnolia was better than the old scheme, but I've been putting off getting the living room painted because I hate painting with a passion and I don't have a ladder tall enough. I may just say to hell with it and get someone to come in and paint it. It'll be worth several $100s for me to not deal with it. My grandpa used to take me to a diner when he would visit. He would smoke the whole way in the car and the whole time at the diner. Every time I smell cigarette smoke, it brings back great memories of one-on-one time with my grandpa. He died when I was 6, so I think the smell is something my memory really latched onto. I have hardly any other memories from that early in life, but I remember those trips with Grandpa vividly. Thank you, cigarette smoke. Using radioactive isotopes in paints for glow-in-the-dark things. Also asbestos. Having kids with your family to keep your bloodline pure. Renting VHS videos and getting charged $3 every day that you're late from Blockbuster Video. The charge would show up 5 years later when you apply for a new card if you moved lol. They were going to win, but the speed and completeness of BB's downfall was fueled by resentment I think. Probably also why they were not able to successfully leverage their brand into delivery and streaming. Remember originally all Netflix did was mail you DVDs, up to 3 at once, and that was enough. No late fees. Giving kids cocaine for a cold. Babies weren't allowed to have anesthesia because people though they couldn't feel pain. Infant circumcisions are still routinely done without anesthesia because doctors are unfamiliar with infant anesthesia and he won't remember it anyway. Study in 1997 showed that something remembers even if the conscious mind does not. Months after being circumcised without anesthesia, infants showed twice the pain response to vaccinations as their uncircumcised cohorts. Those circumcised with anesthesia fell in between, visiting friends and family at their house unexpectedly. 1990s, oh hey good to see you, Bill. Come on in. Today, why the fuck did Bill just stop by without any notice? At least text me beforehand. Answering the phone when you don't know who is calling. I picked up the other day. It was the IRS. Luckily they called me just in time as they were entering the federal courthouse as I was about to be indicted. To my good fortune, I was able to pay them off. Disaster averted. Edit and disclaimer, I didn't know I needed to do this, but apparently I need to clarify myself. This was a joke. Please people, do not ever send money to someone you don't know under any circumstance. If you owe someone or some entity money, you will know about it. Lead paint. I'm working as a painter this summer, lead jobs are the fucking worst. The actual paint actually holds up surprising well and most homeowners probably don't care, but home prep on a lead house is a fucking drag. Edit, yes I know lead paint is better than latex, water paint. I'm specifically referring to the fact that for lead jobs you have to wear respirators, hazmat suits with gloves and eye pro, lay down plastic all along the house and tape the plastic to the wall, sponge down where you're scraping off peeling paint to prevent lead particles from flying into the air, and more. Lead is a bitch. Fucking asbestos is a fireproof fabric used in gas mask respirators and as insulation, but no, it apparently kills your lungs as it decomposes. Mercury is useful in hats and dental work but drives you crazy. Uranium gives you radiation poisoning but then is an amazing energy source. I don't know what chromium is good for, but I bet it's good for something. Edit, I get it. Chromium is used in stainless steel and other shit. Asbestos is only bad when disturbed. All this is only bad when disturbed. Stop repeating the same goddamned thing over and over again. It makes shit shiny, man. How are you gonna ride to Valhalla if you aren't shiny and chrome? There are parts of USA that have children with elevated blood lead levels that are above Flint, Michigan despite having good water quality. The amount of lead needed to poison is 1/100th of a sugar packet, and when you think about lead paint breaking down and turning into dust, it isn't that big of a leap. If someone dies today, there's a 99% chance that there's been a photograph taken within the last month. The real difference, to me, is that pictures used to be a big event, whereas now they're a part of our everyday lives. Watching executions for fun, stoning people to death. Airline passengers used to dress up for routine flights because travel by air was considered fashionable. Gotta say, when I cashed in my many tens of thousands of air miles to fly first class across the Atlantic, it felt pretty damn good getting on the plane first, and turning left while dressed like a very comfy dirtbag. Kids dying from fucking mumps and polio because you couldn't vaccinate your children. Dumping shit in the streets. Check ancient Rome and disease-ridden London. Letting young kids stay outside playing for hours until the street lights come on without knowing where they are. It's not really effed up, but it's not normal now. I moved to Alaska around 2/3 road grade. During one of the first weeks up here I went to go join up with the other military kids because they know friendship is passing and don't care if you're new. Well, my parents told me to come home when the sun went down. Next morning I came home to confused parents who thought I simply skipped dinner and went to bed, and I was equally confused as to why there was breakfast made and not dinner. Jesus, I never thought of it like that. But you're right. I have a new family of neighbors who just moved in and they seem more like my generation was. Their kids are always in the backyard playing. I'm on a corner lot and our backyards are all connected and they just run wherever they please. It's music to my ears. I forgot how much I missed that sound. This neighborhood has been basic moms and elderly people for so long. It feels alive again now that there's little ones getting into mischief. Fucking 13 years olds as a 40 years old. Abusing the mentally ill. Throwing people into volcanoes while chanting. Marrying a young girl when you are king or head of a church. Marital rape. It used to be that the woman's vagina must be available whenever the husband pleases. My mom often tell my sister and I how, when she was a young, 13 to 15, she would go to and from school using public buses, and it wasn't unusual for her and other girls her age to be harassed by older men. Like they would take their dicks out and try to touch them with it. Or try to touch their intimate parts and shit like that. Luckily this isn't usual nowadays. It still happens, but so little that is very rare to hear about it. What's common now, it's catcalling, but luckily, as many times I've been catcalled, only once did a man try to actually touch me without my consent, unlike my mother's time. Edit, a word using Internet Explorer as your default browser. People in the olden days be like, hey, let's just fry this man inside a metal bowl in front of children LMAO. This was one of the more shocking realizations I had from reading Better Angels. In all of human history, it's only a very, very recent thing that watching a stranger die in horrifying ways is considered anything but great entertainment. Burning women on the stake for thinking that they were witches. Edit, meant stake not rug. Murdering criminals in gladiatorial combat. Ah, those were the days. Marrying and fucking your 15-year-old cousin. A lot of disease treatment and general healthcare was brutal. Mercury, lead, cocaine, and methamphetamine all used to be common medications. Removing whole limbs just because we didn't have the means to deal with infections. ITT, people confusing things considered fucked up now with things that don't exist anymore. Not buckling in your kids in the car. My sister and I spent 12-hour road trips playing and sleeping on the floor of our minivan with the chairs taken out. Now if you don't have your kid properly buckled into their space rocket seat, it's neglectful. I know this isn't exactly the worst thing, but Jell-O mold salads. Lime Jell-O, present in almost all of them, mixed with mayonnaise and literally anything. They put olives in fucking mayo Jell-O. What in the actual fuck was the 50s? Blackface. In the 90s my music teacher showed us Fred Astaire and other prominent actors performing in blackface in class. Try that shiz now. Just showing up at someone's house, early 90s, happened all the time, now, don't do it. I think I approve of this culture shift, by the way. Reusing the names of newborns who died young. My grandmother was one of 22 children, birth control, kids, but only 16 survived to be adults. All 6 children who died young were middle children, and all of their names were reused on subsequent children. In fact, in theory I have 3 great-uncle Jims because the first 2 passed away. The great-uncle Jim who lived was awesome, though, and my great-great-grandmother joked that she was glad he was the Jim who stuck around.